Welcome to Good Libations, which is our show about mixology. I'm Ethel Andrews, I'm a mixologist. And as we have an adventure in drinking all the time, we're going to have another adventure in drinking today. And what we're going to do is we're going to make a margarita variant. Some people refer to this particular margarita as a margatini because sometimes, believe it or not, olive juice is put in it. I've done that before, in fact. But sometimes I will omit that. And also, this particular drink can be made on a large scale in a blender, not as a frozen margarita, but just as a medium to create more quantity. And then you can divest it in a large urn and serve it, with a tap to different guests. But we're just going to use a shaker method today and make it individually so you can see how it basically is made. And again, this is a wonderful little drink. I really like it. The idea of marrying jalapeno and cucumber with the other ingredients of a margarita, I think, produces a beautiful drink. We're going to use fresh lime. We're going to use the triple sec. We're going to use, of course, the tequila, the main ingredient. And you can add, once again, if you wish, the olive rind to it to kind of make it a dirty margatini. But we're going to go ahead and use the shaker for this particular drink. So to begin with, I'm going to add the tequila, and we're actually going to muddle the jalapeno and the cucumber in the bottom of the shaker with the tequila before we add other things to it. So here we go. I'm going to cut up some cucumber. And another thing to note too, if you make this in a large quantity, it's better to make it in advance and really let it sit in that urn so the flavors can marry. But if you're making them individually, it becomes exceedingly important that you muddle them and that you use a little more quantity of the cucumber and of the jalapeno. So we're going to go ahead and do that very thing. We're going to go ahead and quarter the cucumber. And we're going to add yet more cucumber. More quantities of it because we want that flavor to really come out in the drink. And now we're going to go ahead and add the jalapeno. And another thing too, as a general rule, people remove the seeds from jalapeno because it really adds that fire. But because we're making this as an individual drink and not in an urn, we're not going to remove the seeds because we want that fire to be present there, because the drink will be served rather quickly. So we want, again, I emphasize, to keep the seeds in. And of course, when it's divested into the glass, we're not going to have to worry about them getting into the glass because, as a general rule, the shaker will make sure that doesn't happen. We'll see. If things aren't exact, never worry. That's part of the fun. We want there to be a bit of variation from drink to drink so things don't become stereotyped. So here we go. Adding that jalapeno. And curiously, one time when I was doing a mixology event, and this was one of the drinks that they wanted to have made, the people, of course, buy the ingredients. And strangely, the woman who was having the party bought canned jalapenos. And I said, no, they can't be canned jalapenos. You have to have fresh. So she had to go and run off to the store at the last minute and get them. So fresh jalapeno. And again, we want to add a bit more because we want that fire to be present in the drink. So I think we have a decent quantity for one drink of jalapeno and cucumber. So I'm going to go ahead and add the tequila. And as a reminder, I know I mention this all the time, we don't need to buy top shelf liquor for mixed drinks. You don't want to buy rot gut. But it is not necessary to buy expensive tequila to make good margaritas. Expensive tequila is for sipping, just like single malt scotch is for sipping, not making Rob Roys. The same thing with bourbons. Expensive bourbons are to be drank on the rocks or neat, sipped, not mixed. So here we go. Add that tequila so we have a good dose of it. And at this point, I'm going to go ahead and start muddling the jalapeno and the cucumber. And I'm going to use somewhat of a heavy hand because we want to make sure that this is pulverized enough so that the flavors will infuse into the tequila and marry into the tequila. So we have to use a heavy hand, not like we're doing strawberries or something. And again, I always choose not to use my real muddler because it lets you know you don't have to go out and buy expensive barware. This is just a broken, in fact, wooden fork. Well, I think I've pulverized this enough at this point in time. So I'm going to go ahead and add lime. And we want to add sufficient quantity of lime because, again, hand squeezing is superior to juicing them with a juicer. And quartering them makes it a bit easier to squeeze. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Squeeze those limes. Make sure that infusion from the oils of the peel get in there. And it's unfortunate I have a cut on my finger, so I felt that one. Ha. Here we go. And I mentioned this before, but if you have a difficult time squeezing your limes, you could either stick them in the microwave for a few seconds or roll them on a hard surface like a countertop. And you will find that they will be much more cooperative when it comes to getting the juice out of them. And yes, this is more trouble than using a mix, but the result is sure better. And we want to leave some spent shells in here too, so we get even more infusion. And I'm actually going to add a bit more than the whole lime because I want this to taste really, really strong of lime, as a good margarita should. So I'm going to add a little bit more. Sawing away through them. Leave a little more spent shell. Squeeze a little more lime. And in addition to the triple sec, I am going to add a bit of bartender's sugar to this because it does need a decent amount of residual sweetness. Now I'm going to add a bit of triple sec. And again, the tequila should be the dominant ingredient, not the triple sec or the Cointreau if you have deep pockets, but make sure that the tequila is the dominant ingredient. Oh, and I should add some ice before I shake here, and also put ice in our margarita glass. Little bit of ice in the shaker, decent amount of ice in the glass, but not overwhelming, because we want to taste that margie and not just have a watered down mishmash of a drink. So here we go. Now we're going to divest it into the glass. And of course, a majority of people like salt on the rim. That's perfectly fine. I don't choose to do so myself, but people usually like that. And for a garnish with this particular drink, I like to add a little tiny bit of jalapeno, of course, and a little tiny bit of lime. And this is truly a lovely drink. A spicy cucumber jalapeno margarita, rock style. Oh, that really does taste good if I say so myself, and it has plenty of spice in it. And as I mentioned, you can make these on a grander scale with a blender with frozen lime juice, and also add it to an urn because they can be served in large quantities at a party. So keep in mind that this is really a lovely drink. It's somewhat unique, somewhat different, and it definitely brings margaritas to a different dimension without turning them into an overly sweet concoction. Have another sip of it. Quite lovely. So thank you again for tuning into another episode of Good Libations and watching the demonstration of the spicy, excuse me, jalapeno cucumber margarita. And again, always be safe and sensible in your consumption. Keep our community safe and well spoken of. I'm Ethel Andrews. I'm a mixologist. Thank you.